Hello and welcome to Asian Media Network and to the Community Talk Show today, where we dive into information that matter most to our community. I'm Miley, your host, and join me today is a very special person. He also a dear friend of mine for many years. He is a well-respected figure in the legal community, a beacon of fairness and wisdom on the bench. Let's welcome Judge Enrique Medina.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's always great to see you and encounter with you because, guess what, Judge Enrique? I was very nervous back then when I meet with a judge or anyone in the law enforcement. Not that because I cause any crime or any violation, but because when you see, go to the courthouse and the judge is the most powerful man in that room. So, but since I met you, you were so charming, you always crack joke, and you make me feel comfortable. So I'm not scared of judge anymore,
Good.
So thank you. Thank
Good.
you.
And I hope that we can share that so that other people are not scared, so that they feel comfortable in a courtroom talking to a judge, because we're there to help.
Yep, thank you. And I also find out that most judges very nice, just like Judge Enrique. So let me, just a few moments, introduce Judge Enrique to our viewers. Judge Enrique was born in Durango, Mexico, and was raised in Yuma, Arizona. He graduated from Stanford University in 1974 and completed his master's study at ASU and studied international and immigration law at University of San Diego. Judge Enrique was the Justice of the Peace in downtown Phoenix Court and is currently a judge pro tem at Maricopa and Gila County. He has been a city manager in Arizona and California, and he has been served in board of directors for many nonprofit organizations. He has been married to Claudia Lujan for 34 years and have two daughters and one son, Ana Lucia, Selena, and Carlos. So, Judge Enrique, what an impressive bio. I didn't know that you graduated from Stanford. Throughout the year, knowing you didn't tell me about this. You always crack joke. So.
I know. I don't usually tell people because then they treat me differently.
I see.
They treat me differently when they find out I went to Stanford University. And I think they expect me to be smarter. And so, hey, I don't have to set such a high bar.
All right. Well, but you are a very well-respected judge in the community. And because of that, I guess I'm so honored to have the opportunity to invite you on our talk show, talk about things that matter to most of our community members. Some things like we deal with every day, traffic violation, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And something that you have to deal with every day at a courthouse too. So, folks, let's buckle up because I promise you, today's talk show gonna be full of informative and engaging rides. So get ready. And we're coming back with something basic. What constitutes traffic violation and how is it differ from other legal offense?
Well, there's two things I want to tell you. The traffic violations are divided into two: criminal traffic and civil traffic. So the criminal traffic violations include driving under the influence, reckless driving, speeding. Anytime you go over 20 miles an hour, it is considered criminal speed. If you go under that, it's civil speed. And in the civil area, you have laws that require that you have a driver's license, that you have insurance, that you have your car registered with the proper plates and so forth. And so that's the distinction. Also, by the way, if you have to go to court because you have a citation for that. In the criminal matters, you get to plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest. In the civil matters, you plead responsible and not responsible. So a little bit of a difference, little technicalities.
Well, Thank you for explaining it to us. And you mentioned earlier about the criminal versus civil violation. Can you explain further detail about that? How is that impact to somebody if they got like criminal ticket violation?
Well, I'll tell you what's more, one of the things that is very important for people to know, and it's this. The civil matters, they generally have lower fines. The criminal matters have higher fines, and many times, most of the time, you're subject to possible jail time and higher fines.
Well, thank you, Judge, for explaining the difference of all the legal aspect and terminology and different courses. It's already complex to me.
Oh.
However, you mentioned earlier about civil violation versus criminal violation.
There you go.
Well, a lot of people confuse between the two terminology, and also when it go to something like criminal violation, they scare. Can you elaborate a little bit, and how is that impact if somebody got criminal ticket violation?
Absolutely. Lately, a lot of people have been getting criminal violations for exceeding the maximum speed by 20 miles, more than 20 miles an hour. And that's because of the freeways. The reality is if you go more than 20 miles an hour, you're going to get a criminal ticket. Legally, they can arrest you, they can impound your car, and then you have to spend a lot of money, you have to go to court, you're going to get a heavier fine, and it could even mean some jail time. So the civil side, on the other hand, does not necessarily carry jail time. It carries lighter fines, but some of them are important. Most of the people, they're concerned with the fact, or they get cited for not having insurance, or for not having registration, or for not having a license, or not having a legible license. And the no insurance, for example, carries a fine of $950. That's almost $1,000. That's a lot. So you have to have insurance. The insurance, there's different kinds of insurance, but as long as you carry the minimum insurance required by the state, you'll be okay. Nowadays, by the way, you can actually have a picture of your insurance card, show it to the officer, and they have to accept it. So before it wasn't that. Nowadays you can do that. You can also do that with your license. But the registration likewise, and that one carries the fine of $550. If you can produce insurance and registration showing that they were current when they did the stop, send it to the judge, or show it to the judge, or show it to their staff, they can actually dismiss the tickets. And if you get insurance afterwards, or you get registration afterwards, the judge can reduce the fine from $950 to $150, let's say.
Wow.
Save you $800, that's a lot of money. So the whole idea behind it is to get people to comply with the legal requirements of driving, with the laws of the state of Arizona.
Thank you. In terms of the criminal, going back to criminal ticket, how many was that allow in the lifetime of somebody to get a criminal ticket?
Well, the Department of Motor Vehicle regulates your license. And if you get civil and criminal tickets, you get certain amount of points. Naturally, reckless driving, for example, gets 6 points. If you get 12 points in 1 year, they will suspend your license, and they can suspend it for a year. You can continue doing this after a year, then you can start all over, and the points start to accumulate again. So that pretty much means that you just have to be very careful. The one that is difficult, or that makes it difficult for people, is the driving under the influence. The first time around, there's heavy fines, jail time, and so forth. The second time around, even worse. The third time around, even worse, and could even mean 6 months in jail.
Wow.
Pretty
or
serious.
They can revoke your driver license.
And they will, the license will be revoked automatically if you caught with a DUI.
Wow. Yes. The other day, we were talking on the phone, and you gave a good tip about most of the people, when they got ticket violation, automatically say, oh, I'm going to go to traffic school so I can take the point off,
yes.
and it won't impact to my auto insurance. Well, you gave different advice. So why is that? Can you say?
A lot of people do not know that you only get an opportunity to go to defensive driving school one time per year. So it's important that they use it wisely. If you get a criminal traffic ticket and you are allowed to go to a defensive driving school, if you successfully complete the defensive driving school, the ticket goes away. It's dismissed as if it never occurred. Likewise with a civil violation. But the civil violation, you pay the fine and it's on your record, but it's a minor distraction. On the other hand, if it's a criminal ticket, it's going to be on your record for 55 years, pretty much the rest of your life, and you're going to be a criminal. So you want to use the defensive driving school for probably the criminal charges, more so than the civil charges, because then it cleans your record, dismisses the charge.
Wow, that is a very good tip, because if you use it once for defensive driving to cover the civil charge, then if you have criminal charge, then you can use it, right?
You can't use it once a year only. So, and the fines for civil traffic tickets, they're not that high.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's a good tip. Learn from
you.
your wisdom.
There you go.
Yes. Also, Judge, there's in recent year, camera ticket have become increasingly popular, to the point that a lot of people hate camera ticket. I remember there was one year that all Governor Janet Napolitano talked about is a camera speeding ticket, because it's all over the place. So for those who got camera ticket, can you walk them through the process of processing and resolving the issue, pay for the ticket, or in the case of not pay for the ticket?
Well, you know, the camera tickets became popular a while back, and then people considered it an invasion of privacy. Then they decided maybe they should bring some back because there were a lot of people speeding in certain neighborhoods, and they said, we need more vigilance. The requirement when you get a speeding ticket, which is a camera ticket, is that it takes your picture. It's a high-resolution picture that they compare with your driver's license. But some people, as you mentioned, some of your friends or some people that you know, I know it wasn't a friend, there was somebody that decided to use a mask.
Yes.
And then they went through and they were not able to identify the individual, and so he got away with having a lot of tickets. Well, it's kind of the exception to the rule. Eventually they'll catch you because they have the license of the car. They know who it's registered to. They know where you live. Mm-hmm. And if necessary, they will do the necessary investigative work to catch up with the violator. And
you know, that was on the news, on Arizona Republic News, that this driver he's speeding on 101, Highway 101, and every day he wears a different mask. One day he was a giraffe, next day he's a lion, next day he's a monkey. So to the point that it's a cumulative ticket, and he didn't pay from the camera that caught him. And finally the police have to follow him all the way to his workplace at the hospital. So his excuse is, I work at a hospital and I, save people's lives and I need to be on time.
I tell you,
Yep.
You know, there's another one similar to that, is that there was a person who was violating the HOV lanes, and they had a mannequin next to them. They had a mannequin so that if somebody drove by or an officer saw them, they would think that there were two people in the vehicle. But in reality, they found out it was a mannequin, and the individual had to pay the consequences. HOV lane violations are about $400 plus.
But also, Justin, we talk about HOV lane. There are people who are pregnant, and the pregnant woman would say, I have two people, me and my baby inside. Can I use the carpool lane?
I think they had a case and they dismissed the ticket because of the fact that it's another individual. It also depends on the state and at what time they consider gestation and consider the baby a fetus or a human being.
So they can use that
argument. That would come into play.
Or if you go to the court and you have a nice judge, like Judge Enrique, you might dismiss the case or reduce the fine. But I see, Judge, many times even the person go to the courthouse, and even though they at fault, but I see the judge did reduce the fines. That the fact that the person make an effort to show up the courthouse and defend for themselves. So Do you see that?
We have to be understanding, compassionate, and treat people fairly. I had a mother with 5 kids, and they got her for not having a license, for not having registration, not having insurance, all these things, and they wanted to charge her with criminal violations.
Wow.
And the reality is, you and I know they're not necessarily criminals. They're just they only have one car. They have to take the husband to work. They have to take the kids to the doctor. They have to take them to school.
Yeah.
You know, for these sort of things, I think that we as judges, we have to have some discretion to be able to say, hey, maybe we can treat them differently. Maybe we can treat them in a way that would be more fair, and maybe offer them alternative diversion programs. So that's where they can do different things to comply. And if they comply, then the tickets are dismissed. But the whole idea, I think, is to try to encourage people to comply with the laws.
Yes. Well, nowadays with texting while driving is become a serious issue and it's affect countless lives. What are some of the fine or penalty for texting while driving violation?
Yes. The fine for driving, for texting while driving is $188.25, $188.25. It used to be that it was a secondary violation. In other words, they had to stop you for a primary violation before they could cite you for the texting or for having the phone, a wireless device in your hand. Nowadays, it's primary. If they see you with the phone in your hand when it's a violation of the law, and they can stop you and they can cite you for that.
Wow.
So it's very important, I think, for people to understand that you should not be driving and texting. Nowadays, they have the speakerphone. They have various features that allow you. You can even text. It says, you know, somebody texted you. Would you like to respond? Yes. What would you like to say? There you are. So you really don't have to hold it, and it is a distraction. We have situations where people have violated it. They get a phone call, they look down, and then they hit somebody right in the front and, you know, threw them 400 or 500 feet, broken leg, broken arm. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that consider a minor?
It's considered a minor violation, yes.
Okay. Well, that. But then, how many times? So first it's a warner, and then second.
If you keep on repeating the same violations, it gets worse. And the judge has the discretion to increase the penalties. You know, there's a certain limit by law, but they can also do certain things to make it more memorable for you.
So, Judge, talking about keep repeated violation. In those cases, being a judge, what would you do when somebody keep, let's say, every month you see the same face, violate the same thing, like speeding ticket, appear at your courthouse?
Well, you know, in my courthouse downtown, I had a lot of homeless people. And they were being ticketed for sleeping in a park, and at 5:30 in the morning when people are arriving, they would wake them up and they would give them a trespass violation. And that became a repeated offense. It became a repeated issue. And I had a person with 13. And finally I said, you know, I would tell the individual, don't do that. He said, well, Judge, what am I supposed to do? Where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to do? What is the alternative? And really, they had limited alternatives and they had limited resources. So I also thought of, you know what, I need to get together with the police department, with the Capitol Police, with a railroad police, and talk to them so that they can understand the process that we go through, because they're creating a lot of work that might not be necessary, and it's cyclical. And when you cite somebody for these sort of things, you're going to throw them in jail or you're going to have them pay a fine, but they don't have money. Yeah. So, you know, there's a better solution to that. I told them, you know what, maybe wake them up and have them go on their way. It's just that simple. It's just logical. So there's different sanctions for different events, but for the repeat offenders, you can only try to help them out and tell them comply. If you comply, you won't have to pay high fines and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So then, through your course of experience being judge for all these years, can you share some of the most memorable experience at a courthouse that you have related to traffic violation?
I had a gentleman who was going to plead guilty to no driver's license, no insurance, no registration, I think no plates. It had a total fine of like $2,600. And so I asked the gentleman, I saw him, he was maybe around 55 or so, hard worker. You could tell he was a laborer. And he was going to plead guilty to the charge with a plea agreement. And I asked him, I said, so, you're going to plead guilty because you violated these laws. He says, no, I didn't. It shows that they don't believe me, that it wasn't me. And my brother, on 2 other occasions, has stolen my money, has stolen my identification. And I said, well, wait a second. I can't accept a guilty plea if you're telling me that you're not guilty, that it was not you, that it was your brother. So let's have what is called an identification hearing, an ID hearing. And so I called the officer who stopped him. I asked him to come back and bring me a lot of signatures. I asked him to bring information regarding the past incident. And when we were there in the courtroom, before he left, by the way, I asked him, by the way, could you sign this document for me or this page for me? And he signed it in very basic script, and maybe like a first grader, second grader. Yeah. And I said, okay. And so when he came back, we started going through the process. I asked the officer, are you sure that was the individual? Because he keeps on saying it was his brother. No, it was him. I even took a picture and I asked him, is that you? And he said, yes. And I said, so you speak Spanish? And he says, no, I don't speak Spanish. Well, how did you ask him if it was him? He says, I pointed at the picture, two. And he said, yes. And I even had him sign it. So I told him, sign it. And I said, well, do you have a copy of that? And he says, well, your staff should have it in the folder. And I sent it to them. So they brought the picture. And it had the picture of a man, and looked very similar to him, and it had a scripted signature, more like a 5th grader or a 7th grader, cursive, very nice. And I said, this doesn't look like his signature. And by the way, at the bottom of the picture, I see that there is another signature. It's very vague. And he says, well, we got that. That's the picture from the driver's license. I said, okay, well, you know what? That very vague signature, I have his signature before he left last time. I asked him to sign a document, and he brought others that look like first grade signatures. Can you please look at them, officer? And he says, which one do they look like? And he says, well, it looks like the old one. And the one in front, well, it doesn't look like his signature. I said, so does that convince you that it is him or it is not? Your Honor, I don't think that was him. And I said, well, thank you very much, officer. I will have to dismiss the charges. So saved him $2,600, and he cried.
Wow.
So you see, those are very memorable, because you know that if you put a little extra effort into it to try to help people, sometimes you can.
Yes, and that's what a lot of people misconception about the courthouse or the judges. They are afraid that go to the courthouse where the judge gonna, give you a hard time, punish you for, your violation about anything. So they were scared. But in this case, it's actually help out to go to the court.
Before there were punitive judges that they threw the book at you, and they slammed the hammer and they said, you violated the law, you're guilty, you got to pay fines and so forth. And now I've always taken the attitude that I'm going to try to help people comply. That's kind of what we're there to try to get people to comply with the laws, and not necessarily just to punish them. I also try to inform people in my courtroom of the reason for the laws, the violations, and that sort of thing. So it's a matter of philosophy. You still have some old thought of punitive judges and maybe some more progressive judges.
Yep. So if you were lucky that you meet Judge Judge Enrique, who is very, nice and considerate and try to help the people who offender, right? But also, I know that not just you, but other judges out there do the same thing. They try to help people, not to intimidate the people.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah,
yes.
So let's elevate is a little bit higher, which is DUI. Would people who get DUI, would they, how bad is that on their record in terms of they can find a job, or they can run for the election, or they can do other things, even like deportation? Was that impact that
Absolutely.
bad?
It has a lot of implications. It's considered a misdemeanor one.
Okay.
So it's right under the felonies,
Okay.
the milder felonies, but it's considered a serious offense. That one right there, carries a fine of about $2,500, but there's a surcharge of another $78.80. So it's really the fine of about $4,500. And then you can actually you have to pay the fine, and then you can actually have to do 6 months in jail, and then they also have to do probation another 3 to 5 years, depending on the courts and the situation there. And if you're a repeat offender, those multiply almost like twofold. The cost for the defense of a DUI for an individual that is caught for an attorney is anywhere between $5,000, $10,000, and $15,000, depending on the type of charge. And that's a lot of money, it's a lot of money for individuals. But the other thing, we consider it, since if you're going to get convicted of DUI, you're going to have to do some jail time. And so I tell people, you know what, we take it very seriously. If they don't have money to pay for an attorney, we appoint a public defender. They have a lot of experience, and so they defend you, and they tell you, okay, look, your alcohol level was low, or your alcohol level was this. And so we're going to negotiate with the county attorney to see if they can give you a fair deal, and maybe reduce the fines and reduce the time in jail. So it's a serious offense, no doubt about it. And it can have impact. A lot of people have lost their job because of the fact that they got a DUI, or there's a lot of them that were in the military, and so they get demoted, and then they're not allowed to promote because of a driving under the influence offense.
Wow.
So it has a lot of impact on your life, and of course it carries the criminal charge is on your record. The criminal conviction is on your record for about 55 years plus.
Wow. So now we know
No
that.
DUIs.
No DUI. What
Uber,
is
Lyft.
the Uber, Lyft. What is the limit for DUI in Arizona? Is that standardized nationwide?
No, it's 0.08 in Arizona for the basic one, and then 0.5 or more, 0.20 or more. There's different categories, and then you also have extreme DUI, and for those, some people are like 0.36, or they have a lot of alcohol.
Wow.
Sometimes you wonder how they survived, how they lived, because that's a lot of alcohol.
Yep. So when you have DUI violation for things to comply with the law, but then maybe you need to get the attorney to help you to reduce that, right?
Or we appoint a public defender, an attorney
yeah.
there.
Yes.
But it's better not to drink. And if you do drink, have a designated driver. I'm not promoting Uber or Lyft or any of those, but those services, a taxi, it'll be a lot cheaper in the long run than if you get caught driving under the influence.
Yep. Thank you, Judge Enrique. Today, I feel like I'm taking law enforcement traffic violation 101. I learned so much from you, so thank you so much for information sharing. So before we end the conversation today, is there any new law that you would like to share with our audience for this year?
There are a couple of relatively new laws that have come into play. One of them was kind of in play before, but it has to do with new advisements that we have to give the people that are pleading guilty to criminal charges, and it's called a request for a set-aside of the judgment, which together with that, you can also request a certificate of a second chance. What it means is that when you go to court, your folder is in a pile that is accessible to public records request. Anybody can get that information, and then if you request a set aside, we'll put it in another folder or in another pile of folders where only law enforcement has access to them. And together with that, if you have complied with all of the requirements of paying the fines, of doing training, whatever might have been required of you, then you can also request a certificate of a second chance. And what that refers to is that the state has certain licenses that it issues, but if you have a criminal violation, it won't be granted to you. It won't be issued to you. So if you request a certificate of a second chance from the court that processed your case, generally it's given to you, and then you will be able to get that license. So that's a very positive thing. Then that one came into play a couple of years ago, and then there's another one that came into play about a year or so ago, and that's the sealing of the records. And so you can actually, that one has stricter requirements. You have to have complied and finished everything, and 3 years after the conviction, or 5 years, depending on what the statutory provision says regarding that specific violation, you can request your records to be sealed. And so that one is stricter to where law enforcement only can get that information for law enforcement purposes. And that one is kind of good for some people because sometimes they have a little box that you have to check, and so if your records are sealed, in reality, they're not going to be able to access information regarding your judgment, regarding your arrest, regarding your conviction. So those are two relatively new laws.
So that gave people the second chance if they could be able to apply for some certificate or some permit, or be able to maybe get back their feet, get back to work.
Yeah, exactly. It gives them another opportunity. And, if they required, I don't recall exactly which licenses were restricted to not having a criminal conviction. But it could have been being a hairstylist, being a nurse, being a boxer, being a contractor. There's various licenses that were prohibited if you had a criminal violation, a criminal judgment, a criminal conviction.
So where should they apply for that? And is there a fee for doing that?
There is no fee for the set aside, and you apply at the court where your case was processed.
I see. And how long it take to get approval?
It depends on the judge. It could be as easily as the same day. It could be a week. It could be a month. It depends on the judge and the specific court.
Wow, that's very good information to know. Thank you, Judge, for sharing all the good information about traffic violation, about the new law, and we would love to have you back again soon. We can talk about different laws that affect our life or business, such as eviction. I hear a lot about that these days. That could be another good topic to talk about, right?
If it's an invite, thank you very much. I'm glad to be back.
Thank you. So folks, thank you for watching our show. And if you have any question for Judge Enrique or about the show, please go ahead and send us a message through inbox. And we will ask Judge Enrique in the next episode. Once again, thank you so much. And remember, knowledge is the power. And having knowledge, be informed, will help us make better decisions. So drive safe and be informed, and just like they said, look up to your drive, not look down to the phone.
There you go. Be attentive.
Yeah, be attentive. Thank you
for
your time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next episode.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.